Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming by. Um, Today's episode's tough, man. It's tough. There's so many conflicting stories out there about this dude and his crew. I don't know if you noticed it in the thumbnail, but this one is about Commander Valiant Thor. I say Val because that is what he goes by, I guess, for most of his entire time he's on Earth. Anyway, my question is if this is even like, if this is legit or if it was something set up. I don't know. I am baffled. Hopefully, whatever I tell you today, you will have enough tools. And if I say it out loud again, maybe it'll figure out in my mind too if it makes sense or not. So let's just go. On Saturday, March 16th, 1957, in a crop field in Alexandria, Virginia, a 300-foot diameter spacecraft, UFO, flying saucer, what have you, in 1957, probably going by flying saucer, called the Victor 1 landed. And before it landed, people had seen it flying overhead and had alerted the local police. So two local officers were kind of waiting. They were there when it landed. They were looking at this thing, and someone came out of it. That someone was Commander Valiant Thor. Now, he had other crew members. I'll name them. They weren't with him when he first saw these officers, okay? He had a vice commander named Teal. I don't even have a picture of her, actually, but I have pictures of the other crew members. And there was also Jill, Tanya, and the other one was his brother Don with two N's. Now, only Thor, like I said, greeted the officers. Now, they initially had their guns drawn. I just hit the speaker. Of course I did, because I hit things all the time. Anyway, they had their weapons drawn on him, and initially they just didn't, they were like frozen. And then there was a thought transference between Thor and, I'm just going to call him Thor, Valiant Thor. Thor is an easy one for me to remember because of Marvel. And who doesn't like some Thor? So anyway, thought transference happened. The guns were pulled down and they just said to him, "What do you need?" Like, that's a how do you do? Welcome to Earth. What do you need? What can we do for you? So he said that he needed to see Val, or Thor, wanted to see the President of the United States. The two officers then proceeded to call their boss, who in turn, naturally, I guess, called someone he knew at the Pentagon. And using same day, keep in mind, this all happened in the same day. Thor was taken via underground tunnels to meet first with the Undersecretary of Defense, Neil H. McElroy, which quickly thereafter they met, brought him directly to the White House to meet Eisenhower, Vice President Nixon, the Joint Chiefs, okay? And Val explained that he and his crew were part of, now this is another, depending on which story you read or which information you got, it is a 12-member unification or intergalactic high council. So it's either a unification council or an intergalactic high council. I swear to God, if I have to introduce one more damn galactic council or whatever, I already did an episode on that and my brain turned to mush. So anyway, the purpose, they said, of their visit, okay, was to help prevent further sickness, poverty, hunger, and basically to keep us from going to nuclear war. The atomic bombs had gotten the attention in the universe, clearly, because Val also explained that there were other ships in other parts of the world reaching out to those governments throughout Earth. Now, essentially, they were kind of here to save us from ourselves, right? And he also told them that he was from Venus. Sure. and that is people lived within the Earth, their planet's core, not on the surface. And many other worlds throughout the galaxy did this. They live inside the planets. Now, does that remind you of anything? It reminded me of Admiral Byrd's personal story in his journal talking about that crystal city and meeting those beings who live in the core of Earth. So, in that episode was it's like Antarctica's Dark Secrets or Icy Secrets or something. So if you want to check that out, just as a refresher. Now, Thor was taken back to the Pentagon, where he met Dr. Frank Stranges. I'll tell you more about him in a minute. Now, they would have several meetings over the course of the time that Val, I'm going to go back and forth between Val and Thor. It's just going to happen. Remained on Earth. He actually lived at the Pentagon, what turned out to be 3 years, and he was perfectly happy. He wanted to help. His crew members were with him most of the time, but not all the time. Now, if you believe a different story narrative that came in, Phil Schneider, who I have mentioned before in regards to the Dulce base battle. I don't know if you remember that, but in my book that I wrote, that UFO book, Bringing History Back to See the Path Forward, I have a whole section on the Dulce base battle. And anyway, Phil Schneider's dad at this time worked in the Pentagon. I'm going to be having pictures probably, showing. I know I have one of Thor, who supposedly is Thor, sitting in front of who is confirmed, 100% it's confirmed that this is Phil Schneider's dad. So that picture, I don't know who that person is in front of him with the blonde hair, because if you look at these other pictures of Thor, Valiant Thor, he's got a darker hair. I mean, not to say that his hair didn't change color when he came to Earth. I don't know. But their hairlines are different, and I just can't, I'm not able to grasp how we're supposed to think that that's the same person, but I digress. I don't want to get too far over my skis here. Now, multiple tests were conducted on Valiant Thor, and all with his permission. He didn't mind any of it. Now, it turns out he had an enlarged heart, he had one lung, and his IQ was in the range of like 1200. Now, to give you some perspective on how absolutely fucking high that is, I'm going to give you an example. The highest IQ on record on Earth is 250, and that was held by a man named William James. He died in 1944. Okay, now Einstein was read at 160, Bill Gates 130, and they're considered to be geniuses. 1200 people, 12 freaking hundred. Yeah. Anyway, they also tested Thor's jumpsuit that he traveled in. Okay, and it was apparently completely indestructible. They tried to shoot it, all sorts of bullets. Like they even tried those what do you call them? The bulletproof vest penetrating ones, like the ones that really are freaking awful. Acid was used on them, and fire. They tried to blow it up. There wasn't even a scratch on these jumpsuits. Nothing. I mean, oh my God, completely impenetrable. So when Val explained that to the government that their purpose for coming, which in addition to the other things I mentioned, also included free energy for people, the government immediately shut him down. Now, I have talked about this before, how but I think it's called We've Made Contact, Now What? That was one of my episodes. And it's like basically, if we were given the gift from the aliens of any kind, the energy, the free energy, our economy would just implode. And it would be dark days, ironically, for free energy. But so he was very disappointed that was the reaction that our government gave to this incredible opportunity. As you can see in one of the pictures, I think I did not caption it, but it actually says exactly what I would have said about his disappointment, like the face he's making in the picture, if it really is him. Now, I just want to give you a little bit more background on Dr. Frank Strange's. Now, he claims that they met many times over the course of the 3 years that Thor was with the Pentagon. And his kind of confirmation of that is from Admiral Byrd, who I just spoke about earlier, Operation High Jump, seeing those beings, inner Earth people. He was the nephew of Admiral Byrd, and his name was Harley. And apparently he worked for the Department of Defense from 1957 to 1963, and he also was assigned to Project Blue Book, which, of course, I have mentioned before, and it's also in my book. And that was the secret military program that studied UFO reports and, witness accounts and whatnot. Now, he also wrote a book called Stranger at the Pentagon. What a weird last name, huh? Stranges? Weird. But Stranger at the Pentagon was the book he wrote. And it went into depth about the aliens and what they looked like physically, which to the human, you can see in the pictures that I've shown you already, they look like humans. They totally look like humans. There are some discernible differences, though. Stranges said that they had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. He said they had no fingerprints. He claimed that they could live to 500 years old, and they didn't have belly buttons, which I thought was such an off thing to mention. But whatever. Okay, so no belly buttons. Now, another thing is Thor also had a deep interest in Christianity. Now, this was a little bit of a red flag for me, okay? Whenever all of a sudden religion seems to be coming into the fold, and then listen to this, okay? Thor went as far as to say that Jesus was in fact an alien in there, and that he was from outer space and had spread his word across the galaxy. And Stranges, also a preacher, said that Thor told him that his purpose in coming to Earth, along with all the other stuff that we've already mentioned, was to help mankind return to the Lord. This just sounds like a glorified evangelistic kind of like cult. I don't know. He spoke in positive terms and always had a nice disposition about his presentation, but still, he was all about the Jesus and the God. And anytime I have studied or done research on anything having to do with the aliens, I have never, ever had religion come into it. So it's just interesting that this story, being as confusing as it is, because there is just so much out there that is bizarre about it. But he said that Thor said that man has never been further away from God than they were then. Now, this was in 1957, right? But there was still a good chance, if man looked in the right place, that they could find God. Can you imagine if Valiant Thor saw us today? Oh my God, he'd shit twice and die. He would lose his absolute fucking mind, because this place is a shit show, right? It's a shit show. I don't care. I don't care what your beliefs are. We are living in a complete shit show. I am not going to go political or anything, but oh boy, I don't think I need to. I think I hit it again. It's my little microphone. Hoping that it's not really screwing everything up. Oh, and by the way, I wore pink today just in case I turned pink. I'm going to beat my computer at its own game. All right, anywho. Now, so Thor, as I said, stayed for 3 years. Abruptly, in 1960, he disappeared. According to what Frank Strange has said, he dematerialized and went back to his planet, which I thought was just odd. Now, before I go into the other red flags I found or the flaws of this story, I also want to mention that there's a portion of the story that has Frank Strange's going on their ship that Phil Schneider still even believes he's passed away, but he said before he passed away that the ship was still over Lake Mead. We couldn't see it because of some sort of cloaking capabilities, but he said it was there. Yeah, I don't know about that. You look at pictures of Lake Mead, there's like barely anything, like any water. Yes, the water levels are rising, but still. Anyway, okay, I digress. There are some major flaws, so let's get into them. Now, Venus as a planet, let's get on that first. It's far from what anyone would ever consider traditionally habitable, right? It is a vicious little planet. Whether you're living inside it or outside it, it's tough. And I'm confused as to why or how they've created people, beings, whatever, to look so much like us. Like that's strange, right? My hair is big. It's just, they're so indiscernible from us, other than the 6 digits on things. I don't know. That's just weird. Also, where's all the evidence? He was here 3 years. These freaking grainy pictures that I've shown you, that's all we have? Come on, people. I don't know. It reeks so badly of government cover-up, government-controlled story, but that's my theory, okay? Now, honestly, these pictures, if you look at these pictures, and they're all dressed typically like young, hip 1950s, early, like how young people would dress. The women are in their cute little poodly skirt type looking things and little sweaters, their hair's up, and they look so wholesome. What? It just seems like a lot of you gotta take a real leap of faith to believe this kind of thing. But Frank Strange's claims that the pictures that you're seeing are these people. I say, back in the 50s, you're not going to be able to do facial recognition on anybody, so he could have said they were anybody, right? How are you supposed to discredit that? And another issue, speaking of Dr. Frank Strange's, his credentials were called into question, and there's no independent verification that Strange's had a top secret clearance at the Pentagon, and because his verification from Admiral Byrd's so-called nephew gets called into question too. That's next. The PhDs that Dr. Strange's claimed he had, the psychology, philosophy, and criminology, not one diploma could be manufactured. Not one. He had no proof. He just claimed them. He called himself doctor. And he had no claims. He had nothing to back that up. Oh, so weird. And then here's the kicker. Okay, so Harley Byrd, supposedly the nephew, right, of Admiral Byrd. According to Ancestry.com, it could not be confirmed nor denied if he had any relation to Admiral Byrd. But here's the thing. His story, if it were true, would require him to have been in a senior role at Project Blue Book with top security clearance and over a year of training already behind him at the tender age of 18. All right, I'm terrible in math, self-proclaimed awful. Those numbers don't make sense. And to have all of that experience, what did he start when he was 7? Give me a break. So Harley Byrd even went on the air of a very popular radio show called the Art Bell Coast to Coast AM radio show in 1995. Things went very, very wrong very, very quickly. he was talking about those journals that Admiral Byrd had wanted to share with the world when he got back from Operation High Jump, and having seen the beings in government had shut him down. But by 1995, this information was out. It was for anybody to claim, really. I mean, it's like this kid really tried to sell what was not his to sell. So I don't think he had any relation personally to Admiral Byrd, but that's just me. That's what I got. It is, like I said, confusing, weird, so strange, a lot of pieces to a puzzle that I seriously think it's like a jigsaw that like pieces were taken from like 12 different puzzles and then tried to make into, one. But, I'd love to hear what you think. I know I don't, comments are not something that a lot of people want to spend time on. So this video is already running a little long, so I'll let you go. And thank you for stopping by. And I hope you are staying happy and healthy and stay weird, just like this silly story. And take care. Bye.